is Mr. Spinelli, and for those of you who had me for English 10, this should sound very familiar. For those of you who have not had me for English 10, this should still sound familiar, because what I'm about to say applies to any paper that you write in a humanities class that requires an MLA format, which is Modern Language Association, which I told my 10th graders is a bunch of people who sit around a table and decide on rules that writing needs to format to. So if you go to a school outside of California, the same writing rules apply. So if you went to a school in Pennsylvania or Colorado and you were writing a paper in English or a humanities class, the same type of writing style is expected. Same thing here at Moreau. What you do in an English classroom and how we teach you how to write the research paper carries over to your other classes. So I'm going to go over with you guys again how to use quotations, how to put the parenthetical citations in the body of the paper, and the difference between a works cited page and a bibliography. If you guys remember, I told you that it's much better to paraphrase rather than use direct quotes. Remember that no more than 1/5 of your paper should really be using direct quotes, because the more direct quotes you use is telling the author, the reader, that you do not understand really what the research may be about. But if you can put it in your own words entirely and paraphrase it correctly, then you truly understand the research, proving to the reader and yourself that you understand the concept and can argue it or do whatever you need to do in order to make your case. So it's always better to probably paraphrase than to use direct quotes. Remember that there's different types of textual evidence we went over. There's facts, there's statistics, which are numbers, there's examples, and then there's expert opinion. And we talked about how the only one that should not be paraphrased would be expert opinion, because if you paraphrase expert opinion, you may lose the voice of the expert. But facts, stats, and examples can all be paraphrased. However, expert opinion I would stay away from unless you can actually get away with doing it clear enough that you don't lose the voice of the expert. So let's go back into actually how to put these into the paper. So the very first time that you use a source from a piece of textual evidence from a source, you must lead that textual piece of evidence in with the name of the author, the title of the work, and then quote what they say, and then an end citation. In the end citation, it's just parenthesis, page number, parenthesis, period. If there is no page number, you must count the paragraphs. And so your lead-in would be the full names of the author, the title of the text, the piece of textual evidence in quotation marks, the end quote, the parenthesis, and then a small p for paragraph, AR dot, and then the number of the paragraph, and then end parenthesis, and then period. So that's how you would do that for the in-quote or in-paper citation. But that's the first time that you use a source. You need to give the full name of the author, the title of the work, quote what they say, and the proper end citation with page or paragraph number. So for example, if I was doing the first time I used an article from the article called Protecting Your Car from Flying Birds, I might say, in Protecting Your Car from Flying Birds, Bill Baxter and Amy Hansen write, pigeons are often considered to be disgusting vermin. End quote, 82 is my end citation. Or you can introduce the author first. According to Bill Baxter and Amy Hansen in Protecting Your Car from Flying Birds, quote, pigeons are often considered to be disgusting vermin. End quote, parenthesis, 82, parenthesis, period. If there was no page number, then I would put PAR under lowercase and the paragraph number. So it can be according to plus the author and then the quotation marks and the textual evidence. Any other time that you use that piece, a textual piece of evidence from that same article, you do not need to give the full name of the author or the title of the article. All you need to do is use the author's last name and say something like Hansen goes on to later state, or Hansen later states in her article, or Hansen writes later on that, and then lead into your textual piece of evidence. Okay. If you have an article that you are using in your essay and it has no author, then the lead-in would always be the title of the article, and then the piece of textual evidence, and then the parenthetical end citation with page or paragraph number. So if I did not have Amy Hansen as the author, my lead-in for that article would always be, in the article Protecting Your Car from Flying Birds, it states, or in Protecting Your Car from Flying Birds says, or in Protecting Your Car from Flying Birds has the opinion that, and then I would quote what that says from that article, and then the correct parenthetical citation with the parentheses and the page number, or the parentheses and the lowercase par for paragraph, period, and the number, and the end citation, and the period. Remember, the period always goes outside the parentheses, not inside the quotation marks. The only thing that can go inside the quotation marks would be an exclamation point or a question mark, but you still need the period after the parentheses at the end citation. Again, it's better to paraphrase rather than use direct quotes. However, if you do paraphrase, you still do need the lead-in, but don't say states anymore because the author isn't stating it. You're stating it in your own words from the author's idea. So it would be Amy Hansen has an idea that, and then you would kind of put what she said in your own words, but no quotation marks around it, but it still needs an end citation so we know where your idea ends and your analysis of that idea begins. So don't forget about that as well. And you guys all know how to use Noodlebib, and you know Noodlebib formats that for you. And you know that you download it to a Word doc and it'll put Works Cited at the top. Works cited means that you actually used a source in your paper from that source, and it appears in your Works Cited page. So a Works Cited page is any source that you used in your paper appears in your Works Cited page. A bibliography is different. A bibliography might be I referred to a source but didn't use it in my paper, so I'm not going to put it in the Works Cited page. The Works Cited page only reflects the sources that you used in your essay. So I would make sure I had Amy Hansen in there and Bill Baxter's article in there, and every article that I use that I have a parenthetical end citation in my paper for in my Works Cited page. A bibliography, if I consulted something but I didn't actually use anything from it because I didn't understand a concept and maybe I needed to get information to better understand it, and so I consulted something but I didn't actually use anything from it, you don't have to put that in the Works Cited page, but that would go in a bibliography. It's up to your teacher whether they want a bibliography or a Works Cited page.
So, as evidenced by the iSearch papers that were recently turned in to me, which I know you did when you were freshmen, let's look at some examples of proper formatting. We have page numbers in the upper right-hand corner, and next to that is a name, your last name, so that if your papers get separated, we can put them back together. Ensure that in the heading, you use both your first and last name. Margins are 1 inch all the way around. The font size of your essay should be no bigger than 12. Finally, while the entire essay should be double spaced, notice there are no extra spaces between the heading, the title, the rest of the essay, or in between individual paragraphs.
Remember that when you're writing a formal research paper, it's a formal research paper. And that means that you want to use third-person pronouns. He, she, it, and they. You don't want to use first-person pronouns, I, because that's very conversational, and it makes everything that you're saying subjective. You want to be formal, so you want that authoritative third person. You also don't want to use second-person pronouns, you, because you addresses the reader. And when you say you in a paper, you're assigning them experiences, understandings, beliefs, and attitudes that you can't assign to them because you don't know that they've experienced that, think that, or see what you're telling them they see. The safest pronoun to use in a formal research paper is the third-person pronouns. Remember that when you're writing a formal research paper, you want to adopt a voice that is credible, that makes you sound like you know what you're talking about, that you've done your research, and that you're a knowledgeable voice. So you do not want to use slang in a formal research paper. You also don't want to use contractions in a formal research paper. you would like to have the voice that you present your work in be the voice of an expert who is speaking with confidence. And that means using your best vocabulary and complete words all the time. In the same way, you don't want to use contractions in a formal paper, because contractions are very conversational and chummy. And the person that you're talking to in your research paper is not your buddy, and it's not your pal. So you want to make sure that you're speaking to them in a way that is going to let them know that you're serious and you mean business. And that means no contractions.
We're going to be talking about paragraph structure. A paragraph is a fully developed idea. So unless you're writing an introductory paragraph to introduce your topic, 2 sentences is never enough. And on the other side of that, a full page of text without any indentation is disorganized and lacks all structure. So you need to read through that full page of text and figure out where you change topics along the way to give the body of your text format. Your teacher will also tell you whether or not you can write in past tense or present tense. Either one is going to be fine depending on your topic. The problem comes when you start bouncing back and forth between time. That makes the reader dizzy. So if you begin with present tense, stay with present tense throughout the entire paper. And if you begin with past tense, you have to also keep it with past tense throughout the entire paper. Also, don't forget about fragments and run-ons. You have all been taught at different points how to use periods and how to use commas. So these are tools to use at your disposal to break up your ideas. If you're unsure, you have to go back and proofread. To be a complete sentence, you need a subject and a verb. The girl read. The boy jumped. These are complete thoughts, and therefore they necessitate a period at the end.